Garage. Today we're in Axel's Kitchen. And of course Axel's Kitchen is a noisy place because everybody likes to make noise and walk around behind me. We're making chili today in the kitchen. We worked on the car during the day, cleaned up, and now we're going to make chili. We're making chili for the first annual chili cook-off at the local high school. It's the last home football game, and we're going to have about 7 or 8 different chilies, and we're going to do a chili cook-off. So tonight I'm making chili for 40 people, which is double my normal chili recipe. My chili recipe normally serves 20. So I'm doubling all my quantities. Don't worry about the quantities. If you want to know how to make the chili, we're going to have something in the description that's going to have all the ingredients and directions on how to make it. This is only the second time I've done a recipe video. My first one, and now I can do this, the first one was how to make fried Oreos. And that worked out pretty good. People liked it. So click here. I finally figured it out. Click here. And you can get to the fried Oreo video, or I'll put a link in the description below. So I'm going to get my ingredients out, and we'll go over what we're going to need to make this chili. Alright, to start off, the first thing that I like to do is prepare my vegetable ingredients, because that's the most time consuming. It'll be onions, it'll be a variety of sweet, I guess, bell peppers they're called. Are they called bell peppers? Are these called bell peppers?
Yeah.
Alright, so I got 2 greens, I got 2 yellows, and I got 2 reds. In reality, you could use all the same color, you could use all green. I just like the different colors because I think it looks nice. I don't really know if there's any difference in flavor. Then what I grabbed is any hot or mild to hot peppers that are in your local supermarket. Don't have to go crazy looking for peppers. What I did this time was I like to grab usually jalapenos, but this time they had mild to mild hot green chili peppers. Hey, chili peppers and chili. So I got 2 of them. And then I got some habaneros, and I got a whole handful of them, probably about 6 of them. I usually will get, for my normal chili recipe that serves 20, I'll usually put about 3 or 4 jalapeno peppers in, and that provides some of the heat. If you're trying to make it a little bit hotter, when you cut them open, don't clean the seeds out. Throw the seeds in with it. Keep the seeds. This is for a chili cook-off, so I don't want to make it too hot, so I'm not going to keep the seeds. So what I'll do is, I'll cut these peppers open, and I'll clean the seeds out of all the peppers, especially the hot peppers. And then the only other vegetable that I put in is celery. And it's a decent amount of celery goes in there. The pain in the neck here is, chopping it all up, and you're pretty much dicing the vegetables up, whether it be the onions, the peppers, or whatnot. And you're going to dice them all up. You don't have to start cooking them in any certain order. I'll show you how you do that. What I like to use to help me cut them up, now I know like a professional person or whatever is going to just chop them up with a knife real quick. What I think is the easiest is to use a hand slicer like this. It's called a mandolin slicer. This one is made by OXO. It's real sharp, and it makes the job a lot quicker for a novice or somebody who's not always dicing something up in the kitchen. Even if you have a good knife, it's a pain in the ass to dice all this stuff up. So I use the mandolin slicer. So in order to save you the burden, I'm going to dice this stuff up, and then we'll show you what it looks like in the end. Okay, about a half hour into cutting, I have almost all my vegetables cut. It turned out that mandolin slicer doesn't work well with the peppers. It works great with the onions, and I'll show you that in a minute. But I just wanted to address the peppers. You can see here in front of me the reason why I used the different color peppers. Right, it looks pretty neat. Right, you got some nice color. The flavor is probably a little different between them. Who knows? In a chili, who can really tell? But don't get obsessed about what size to cut them. Maybe a little 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch cubed is fine. Usually what I do is if I cut some thicker, the next one I cut them thinner. But don't get crazy with that. Same thing with the celery. 1/4 inch about cubes is fine. They're going to soften up when you start to saute them. Now the hot peppers. The hot peppers you got to dice really, really small. And the reason why you're dicing them small is because you want to have as much surface area of that pepper touching everything else and going in that pot. They're almost going to dissolve. You're cutting them so small. And that's how that's where your heat's coming from. Predominantly your heat's coming from these hot peppers, and in this chili we're using 2 mild to medium to hot chili peppers, and we're using like 6 to 8 really hot habaneros. And that's 6 to 8 habaneros isn't a ton for chili that's going to feed 40 people. Now, a lot of people claim that chili doesn't need all these vegetables in it except for the peppers, chili peppers, and that's it. I've eaten chili all over the place, and I've tried to make different chilies, and I've gotten chili cookbooks, and depending on what region of the country you live in, their chili, whether it has beans or beef or vegetables or no vegetables. Some places put corn in their chili, I don't know. Supposedly there's a competing chili with me tomorrow that's going to have Cheetos and brown sugar in it, and then one with ketchup in it. Now that's like chili catastrophe to me. But I'm a chili guy, and I like chili. So I don't put any of that in my chili. I do like the vegetables, and I do like beans and meat mixed together. And when we get to the meat portion, we'll go over what kind of meats you could use, what kind of meats I'm going to use for this competition, and what kind of meats I normally use when I'm cooking it for my at home for my family and my friends. So I'm going to get all this in a pot just to put it to the side, all these peppers and the celery, and then I'm going to adjust the camera and I'm going to bring it down so that you can see how that mandolin slicer works on the onions. It works pretty neat. Just a side note about these hot peppers, when you cut them, make sure before you start to touch your face or your eyes or anything like that, you wash your hands. Believe me, I know from experience. If you're picking at stuff while you're cooking, which I just was, my wife made some quesadillas, and I grabbed a piece of quesadilla and threw it in my mouth, and I do have some tingling around my mouth just from handling and dicing up these hot peppers, the habaneros. Make sure you wash your hands, especially before you go to the bathroom. And I know from experience there as well. That hurts. What? It's true. Shit happens. Well, it wasn't shit. Okay, using the mandolin slicer, right? Sort of give it a little 1/8 of an inch or so. You skin the onions however which way you would normally do it. Yeah, my eyes are a little teary right now. And then you pretty much keep running it over that at the 1/8 of an inch mark. Alright, yes, my hand is getting close to the blade, and that's why they got this thing over here, so you can get almost the whole onion out of it. So you're going back and forth, okay, until you get down to the bottom of the onion, and that's what you got left and the end. Now, you take it off, and here's your onion that's nicely sliced. I sort of try to get it back up together like that. All right, this is a little fat cut, so I'll put that to the side, but I'll turn it around like that. I'll give it a slice across, and then I'll just keep slicing it up like this. Any spots that squeak out, I'll cut, and then I'll just come along like that and just give it some good cuts with a sharp knife to dice up the onion. This works pretty well, and it limits your exposure to the onion, so it limits the amount of tearing coming out of your face. Alright, and then these that I missed over here, I'll throw to the side, and I'll get these chopped up at the end. But that's pretty good like that, especially the onions, because they soften up real easy and they shrink up, and they turn into almost nothing once you got them going, sauteing in the pot. Alright, so I'll do the 4 or 5 onions that I have, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so we got all the vegetables chopped up. Now we can move along to the meats and our beans. I don't know if is a bean a vegetable? I don't know. Is a bean a vegetable?
No.
Is a bean a vegetable?
No, it's a...
Whatever it is, a bean. So
you
you take your beans. I use canned beans. I don't use the bagged beans because the canned beans is nice and easy. I usually get red kidney beans, black beans, pink beans, light kidney beans, white beans. Whatever they have on the shelf is good. 4 or 5 different kinds of beans. I even use chickpeas, which are garbanzo beans. Mix them all up. What I do is I pour those beans into a colander and let the juice that the beans come in drip out. I don't need any of that juice. As far as meat, I like to use a mixture of chopped meat, of chopped beef, maybe some chopped or ground pork, ground beef, ground pork. I like to take any kinds of cheap cuts of beef or pork and sort of cube them up. So if you have a couple of leftover pork chops in the freezer or small steaks in the freezer, you just take them, defrost them, and cube them up into like half-inch cubes, whatever you have laying around. The best chilies that I've ever made, the meat that I used was all leftovers from the freezer. So a couple of breakfast sausage even I threw in there, chopped them up and threw them in. Old steaks, not old steaks, but if there's like 2 steaks left frozen, and the 2 steaks ain't gonna feed anybody in my family, so take that out and chop it up. I never put chicken in it, never put turkey in it. It's always pork or beef. I have used venison. This is a great chili recipe for using venison. But because it's a chili cook-off, I gotta use 10 pounds of meat in the chili. So instead of going through all that work and chopping it up, I kind of like the different texture of having cubed meat in there along with the ground meat. I'm just going to use ground beef. So I got a 10-pound bag of ground beef. And that's going to be our meat. But like all good recipes, they should really start with either buttermilk or bacon fat. So what I like to put in my chili, and I know there's some chili people out there that are going to hear this and go, oh no, but it's bacon. And I usually put a pound of bacon, and that's how I start my chili. I usually put a pound of bacon, so I'm going to do probably about 2.5 pounds of bacon in this chili, just because it's just a bigger quantity, and that's where I'm going to go on that. Now, these are our other stuff videos. This goes into a playlist called Other Stuff, and because I figured out how to do it, if you want to see some more of our other stuff videos, you can click here. I figured it out. That's right, motherfucker. Click here. Alright? Click here, and it should be there. It better be there. Click there, and you can go to some of our other stuff videos, which goes a little beyond auto repair, and it might dabble into tool reviews or product reviews, maybe some recipes and cooking, and maybe some household repair around the house. Right? Right, Tina?
Right.
So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this bacon up. The bacon's going to get cut up. Pretty much you take a bunch of slices, it's about 10 slices or so, and I kind of just cut through it about 1/4 inch at a time, and you wind up with a 1/4 inch stack of bacon. You open them up and they're like that, and you can imagine what a sliver of bacon like this, once it's going in the pot, is going to shrivel up to. And that's how we're going to start the chili, with the cut up bacon. So I'll cut up all this bacon, and then we'll get it into the pot, and I'll show you how we get all that done. I'm going to cut the bacon now. Okay, so what I have here besides a heckling wife is about 2.5 pounds of bacon chopped up in the bottom of a pot. This isn't my final product pot, this is just to get my vegetables going. So I'm going to take this bacon, I'm going to throw it on the stove, and just keep letting it simmer, stirring it with a wooden spoon. Let all that bacon fat goodness get into it, and then I'll start throwing the vegetables in a little at a time and get them good and soft. In the meantime, alright, I have my ground beef here. I'm going to cut this bag of ground beef open. This is a 10-pound bag. I'm going to use probably about 8 pounds of the 10 pounds. And I'm going to use this oddly shaped frying pan. What do you call this? This is my wife's frying pan, but it's shaped different. It's kind of a deep frying pan. And not deep frying, just a deep frying pan.
Saute pan.
Saute pan, you call it? And I'm going to plop about half the meat in there. What I am going to do, just to help get it going a little bit, is I'm going to take 2 pieces of bacon, and I'm going to drip them in there, and then let some of that bacon goodness mix in with the ground beef. So I'm going to brown this, and I am going to drain off the fat from the ground beef. The bacon that's cooking in that pot behind me, we are not draining off that fat. That fat is part of the special chili serum of bacon fat goodness, so that does not get drained off. Alright, so I'll throw this on and we'll get this stuff browned up. Alright, so while I let that bacon goodness simmer down, and this is what it looks like, it's about, I would say, 3/4 of the way done, and I got a nice 1/2 inch or so of bacon fat goodness in the bottom of the pot. While that was going, I was able to brown 8 pounds of ground beef. So it actually worked out pretty good. Once the ground beef got done, I put it in a colander to drain, and this seems to be just about perfect. It's starting to crisp up on the edges, but it's still basically soft, which is where you want it. You don't want it to be crunchy or burnt, because you don't want that crunchiness in with your chili. So the next step is just to start adding the vegetables little by little. You're just going to saute those vegetables in the bacon fat and the bacon until just they get soft. You don't have to really, overdo them. Just soften them up good. And that's what we're going to start doing now. And I'll just put a little at a time. Normally speaking, in my normal quantity, I'd be able to dump it all in at once into one big pot, but this is just a huge quantity that I'm making. My normal size pot is a pretty big quantity, so this is an even bigger quantity. So now you got your veggies in there. And what I'll do now is I'll add my crushed garlic in now, as the onions and the peppers and the celery is starting to saute in that bacon fat, is when I'm going to add the crushed garlic. And pretty much now is when you're going to start smelling it all start to come together. And I still didn't we really didn't start cooking the chili yet, and it's going to start smelling like it's coming together. So I have all my vegetables in. They're steaming. The bacon fat is mixing and helping saute them. You got to keep stirring them. There's a lot of vegetables in there. They're starting to soften up and diminish in volume. Part of the recipe is to add 2 beers. Now you could add the beers later on. You could add when the chili's all mixed together and simmering, or you could add it early. In this situation where I have so many vegetables, adding the beer early will help steam up those vegetables and get a little more moisture in there to help those vegetables soften up. So what I'm going to use, I used to always use a dark beer, and then I realized, when I was making chili and I didn't have a dark beer on hand, that whatever beer I threw in there actually worked out pretty good. So we're going to go with a Long Ireland beer company, not Long Island, Long Ireland. It's a summer ale, because it's not summer anymore, so the summer ale, it's time to go. And I'm going to use a Red's green apple cider. And I think the green apple cider is going to be a nice addition to the chili. In the end, it's just some extra fluid that you're putting in there to help bring everything together. But I finally have an opportunity to use my new bottle opener. Nice. And I'll add these in. So you give it a good stir and let it get back up to temperature. It smells really good in there. The garlic, the onions, the bacon fat, and then adding the 2 beers, especially this green apple ale, which I'm not a big fan of drinking on its own, but the smell that it's making mixed with those vegetables and everything sauteing is coming really good. The garlic that I used, just to avoid mincing or crushing my own garlic, I used a jar of crushed garlic from the supermarket. 4.5 ounces is about the right amount that you need. I think the recipe calls for 4 cloves, so I'm doubling the recipe, so that's 8 cloves. This is 4.5 ounces. It was like 6 good tablespoons full of garlic. Sounds like a lot of garlic. It is a lot of garlic, but trust me, it pays off. Alright, vegetables are soft. Got my big pot ready, and now we can start putting the chili together. So what I'll do to start off with is grab the pot of vegetables, dump it right into the big pot. Make sure you get out all the bacon goodness. Alright, and you're going to put it on a medium heat or so for right now. Then you're going to take your ground beef that's already been browned and you're going to put that in as well. Alright, so you're going to give that a big stir, and you got your beef in there, you got your vegetables, you got your bacon fat, your garlic. Now you're going to start adding your spices to turn it into a meat and vegetable dry mix into what it's going to be chili, which is going to be your spices and your chili liquid, which is, I call it, which is going to be a combination of crushed tomatoes and tomato sauce, not ketchup. Right, we will put a little Worcestershire sauce, we will put a little hot sauce, we will not put Tabasco sauce, because Tabasco has a very specific and distinct flavor. We're going to go, are you taking me to over there, liar? Tabasco's got a very distinct flavor, so we're just going to use any other hot sauce that you like besides Tabasco. Even if you like Tabasco, don't use it in the chili, because the Tabasco flavor always seems to make its way through. We want the hot sauce to be there to give it a hot sauce kick, not a Tabasco kick. So any other kind of hot sauce that you like other than Tabasco. And I'm going to get my spices together. All the spices that I'm going to use is going to be black pepper, white pepper, cayenne pepper. Not too much cayenne pepper, only because it's for a chili cook-off competition and I'm not looking to make it overly spicy. I might actually only put a teaspoon or so of cayenne pepper in it, taste it as it gets closer to competition time tomorrow, and if I gotta add a little bit, I'll add a little bit. But I think those habaneros were pretty hot, and I think they're gonna do the trick. So I'm gonna probably keep the cayenne on the side for now. I am gonna put some ground mustard in it, and of course I'm gonna put a decent amount of chili powder. I believe I use, let's see what my recipe says. Like I said, this is my own recipe where I kind of took chilies from different regions around the country and I kind of mixed them together. I think my stiffest competition tomorrow is going to be a guy from Texas, moved up here last year, and he's going to make a Texas chili, which probably won't have beans in it. It's probably going to be an all beef chili, and he's probably going to be my competition this year. And then there is one ingredient that I ain't telling you what it is, because that's what makes my chili. And without it, it's still really good chili, but with it, it's my chili. So you can't know what that one is. It's not rocket science. I'm sure most of you could figure it out. It's the one chili ingredient that I didn't put in the chili. You know, like I'm breaking any codes open here. But pretty much what I'm using is, for my chili lube or my chili juice, is going to be just generic crushed tomatoes, whatever brand that your supermarket carries is fine. Crushed tomatoes in a can, and then tomato sauce in a can. It's not like a pasta sauce. This is just regular tomato sauce in a can that you would use to make a sauce that would go on pasta. This stuff does have to be, it's kind of cooked, but it does have to simmer. So when you add the spices and all that in together, that's what is going to start giving you that chili flavor. And we're going to let it simmer anywhere from 3 to 5 hours, and that's what's going to give the meat and everything a chance to all blend together and get those flavors going. The 3 hours is probably your minimum, and that's your hottest. The longer you simmer it after 3 hours, the less spicy it will be. No matter what kind of, unless you add peppers as you simmer, or add some cayenne as you simmer to keep the spice level up, it tends to, a longer simmer tends to mellow it out. So I'm probably going to simmer it for an hour or two tonight, throw it in the fridge, and then tomorrow morning I'll probably simmer it for another hour or two before it's going to be served at the chili cook-off. And that's just to make it easier so I can go to bed tonight and I can get it then warm. So I'm bringing it to the chili cook-off already heated. So when they put it on their heating racks, it's already hot. We don't have to do any cooking there. It's just enough gas on it to keep warm. The beans is going to be the last thing we're going to add is the beans. And the reason for that is the beans are fragile. So you don't want to do a lot of stirring once you add your beans. So that's why we're going to put them in at the end, because once the beans are in there, it's a real gentle stir so that you don't mush or break the beans up. So I'm going to start adding the spices and my tomato sauce and my crushed tomatoes, and it's really going to start smelling like chili in here. Alright, we have it simmering, it's up to temperature, it's simmering away, it smells good, smells like chili, looks like chili, except we didn't put the beans in it yet. Because now it's all simmering together, it's hot, all the spices have had a chance to mix in with everything. It is a little on the wet side because we didn't add the beans yet, so it's a little soupy. I'll snap another pic so that you see what it looks like. Alright, so that was what the chili looks like now before we're adding the beans. Now all we did with the beans, we didn't wash them or anything. They're canned beans. We took them out of the cans, poured them into a colander, let it drain. I don't need all that bean juice in there, whatever that's called, whether it's an oil or water, I don't know what it is. But anyway, I put them into a colander. I'm just going to dump them in. That's about half of them. I'm going to put the other half in the colander, let them drain out and dump them in. And then we're going to keep stirring. We're going to keep it on a very, very low simmer. We're going to stir gently so that we don't mush the beans and break the beans up. We want those beans to be whole. And I'm going to let it simmer for about an hour or two this morning, tonight rather. And then I'll put it in the fridge. Tomorrow morning, the chili competition starts at 1 p.m. The chili starts getting served. They announce the winner at halftime of the game. The game starts at 2 p.m. So figure we're going to serve chili from about 1 till about 2, till about 3 o'clock or so. And then probably around 3:30 or so is when they're going to announce the winner. So I'll probably simmer for another 2 hours tomorrow. That'll give me a total of 4 hours simmer time, which is right in that medium range. I'll check it. I can tell from my nose that being that those 5 tablespoons short on the chili powder, I'm going to have to put some chili powder in. I'll do that in the morning. I'll run out in the morning and get some more chili powder. The only other variable that there is, and the reason why I went with 8 pounds in my 10-pound bag of chop meat, is because sometimes it's for one reason or another, it's a little more liquidy than I like it. And if at the end it's a little too liquidy, what I'll do is I'll brown up some more of that ground beef and throw that in there and mix it in, and that'll help take some of the liquid away and make it a little firmer. But usually, the reason why I like to do it the night before is because when you let it sit in the refrigerator overnight and then you simmer it again, it's a little bit of a thicker chili. I don't like a soupy chili. I kind of like a hearty, thick chili, and that's what I'm aiming for. So I'm going to put the rest of the beans in. I'm going to let it simmer for that a little bit longer, and then I'll put it in the fridge. And tomorrow we'll finish up the video with the finished product on this chili. If you like chili and you like different kinds of chili, especially chili with meat and beans in it, you'll probably like this chili. You could keep it hot, you could keep it mild. The flavor's still good. I like it on the hot side, but like I said, this is going to be more mild, as long as those habaneros weren't too hot. And they were burning my eyes just cutting them up. But we'll see what it's like tomorrow, and we'll finish up the video tomorrow. Okay, it's the next morning. Last night we let the chili simmer for an hour or two while we cleaned up everything, or actually while my wife washed most of the pots and pans and cutting boards that I used. But we let it simmer for pretty much 2 hours, let it cool down, put it in the fridge overnight, and then this morning woke up, brought it up to temp, and then started the clock on the simmering. So it's been simmering another 2 hours. So figure about 4 hours simmer time, which is right in the average. I like to go 3 to 5 hours. I did have to run to the store this morning and get some more chili powder because it was a little light on that chili seasoning. So I was 5 tablespoons short last night. I added another 5 tablespoons. Also a little taste testing, just to get the spice right. I wound up adding a little bit of cayenne pepper to it just to give it a little bite. How the peppers and the seasonings work a lot of times is the fresh hot peppers that you put in are going to give you that after bite, and cayenne pepper and some of the hot sauce that you put in is going to give you that hot flavor as soon as you start eating it. So we got it simmering. I did notice, and depending on your vegetables and your beans, sometimes it'll be a little dry or it'll be a little liquidy. So what I do is if it's a little dry, I'll add another small can. There's 6 or 8 ounce cans of tomato sauce. I'll add another small can or 2 of tomato sauce to make it a little more liquidy. If it's dry, and if it's liquidy like it is today, or it was, when I started simmering this morning, it was a little liquidy. So what I did was I put in a little bit more ground beef. I browned up some more ground beef and dumped that in. That helps absorb some of the liquid, and then it's pretty good. I simmer with a lid on, and then just before serving time, I'll let it keep simmering with the lid off. And that usually gets you to the right consistency. I also serve it, like that, Steve-O. I serve it with a slotted spoon so that it's not as liquidy when it goes in the bowl. And it's a real nice looking chili too. And that's what we're going to do is I'm going to just plate up a small bowl of it just so you can get a good idea of what it looks like. We're at what, about 2 hours? What time is it? Wow, 11:51. So we're about an hour and 10 minutes from serving time. So I'm going to serve up this bowl here so that you can see what it looks like. I'll snap a photo of it, and then I'm going to take that chili, throw it in the car, and we're going to bring it up there. And 1 o'clock is chili cook-off time. Hopefully I do pretty good. I think I have a good chance, except for the new guy from Texas. He might come with something. I know last year, he's new, he hasn't even been in town a year yet, but last year we had a little barbecue after lacrosse season, and they made some kind of Texas potato salad that was out of this world. So I think he's going to be my stiffest competition, and we'll see what he brings to the cook-off. But let me plate this up and stop yapping. I got a small bowl of it here. Let me bring it around. All right, you can see that it's got a nice consistency to it. You got a nice mixture of beans to it. Pretty much every big scoop that you put in, you're gonna get a nice mixture of the different beans. There's, like I said, the garbanzo beans, kidney beans, black beans. We like to really mix it up. And there's definitely enough bacon that every big scoop or every bowl is going to have some bacon in it. It is a little on the spicy side, which is where I want it. It's not too spicy where teens won't eat it, but it is a little bit on the spicy side. Doesn't really need anything. I usually garnish it with a little cheddar cheese, a little shredded cheddar. But that's about it. Off to the chili cook-off. I hope you enjoyed this long-winded recipe on how to make chili. Try it at home. The more you make it, the better you get at it. That's it for Axel's Garage. See you next time.